Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List Live. I am your host, Kurt Schmidt, president and partner at Foundry, and I am so excited that you're here joining me. I've got my friend Joe. We're going to talk about something that, a lot of people have questions about. I get a lot of questions, and Joe does too. We got into talking about this a while back, and we decided, you know what, let's just go on live show and have an open discussion about it. Because, finding a job in product management is very challenging, but also hiring product managers is extremely challenging. So how do you know? Speaking of how do you know where you should work is Foundry. That's right. Segue. So we are hiring at Foundry. We are hiring all sorts of different positions. We're growing. We hit the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies for the second time. We hit it this year, 2 years in a row, which we're very excited and very proud of. We're having our 6th anniversary party this Friday, and things are great. We're having a great time. And you look like you like a good time. And since you like a good time, you might want to check us out. Maybe you want to go and have a good time with us. That sounds like a good time, right? Okay, anyways. All right, I'm going to get into it with Joe. Joe, how are you today? Thank you for joining me.
Kurt, so nice to be with you, my friend, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you're over at Farren. You're one of the co-founders. What does Farren do? What's the work you do there?
Yeah, so long story short, Farren, we're a leadership solutions company, and really what we do is we help organizations that are going through transformation, and specifically digital organizations. And really how we do that is offer 3 things. Strategy, so support and guidance on their digital strategy. Talent, we offer and place consultants within our clients on both an interim and a full-time basis. And then advisory services. We sit alongside our clients and help guide them through the nuances and trickiness of digital transformation.
There's so many nuances.
Oh, it's amazing. So to say the least, we picked the right industry at the right time. The pandemic has only accelerated, as you know, the need for what we do. So it's a good time to be in digital and in product management, and we love working side by side with our clients and helping them through those challenges.
Yeah, see, and speaking of a good time to be into it, I, much like yourself, have gotten so many people reaching out to me over the past year. I mean, it's been for a while, but just especially in the past year, a lot of people asking, what is product management? Or like, could I get into this? Should I do this? It sounds really exciting. But, when I go and I look at the jobs, all the job descriptions are all over the place. They're all different. They're all asking for different skill sets. And when I talk to a lot of people that are hiring, in a roundabout way, and I don't mean to say this to be rude, but in a lot of ways, they're kind of describing unicorn hunting. Because they're looking for people with some very diverse, I guess would be a safe word to use, a set of skills. How about you, from your perspective, Joe? Have you been seeing an increase in not only people interested in, but in the need for the product management role?
No question. Let's take need first.
Okay.
From an organizational level, we see it day in and day out now, which is, actually quite a bit different than even 2 or 3 years ago, Kurt. And I know you know that as well. Yeah. Product is, I don't want to say a buzzword anymore because it's not, it's past that, but it is certainly something that every executive, C-suite member, CTO, CIO, CMO, every kind of leader at larger organizations in particular understand that they need to change how they operate, change how they think, change how they deliver value. Yeah. And product management as a framework or a methodology is really a phenomenal way to do that. And so, yes, we get asked that question all the time. And so certainly the need is there, right? Organizations know they need to remain competitive, and they know product on some level can help them do that. The funny thing though is a lot of executives also think product in and of itself is the unicorn. They think that alone will actually drive the innovation and change that they need. And while it'll certainly drive a lot of that and support it, it certainly isn't the silver bullet either. It's got to fit within a bigger context. And so we help our clients kind of figure out where it fits and how to get started. That's often what we do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the starting part, right? So years ago we had agile transformations, right?
Yep.
And people formed into these agile teams, and then product management quickly followed after that. Defining product owners in an organization, this whole ripple effect of going into this iterative sort of thing, sort of really transformed places. And both you and I know, I mean, digital transformation is cultural and organizational change more so than it is, deploying things to the cloud.
Yep.
Right. Yep. How have you seen that, what companies are asking? Have you seen what companies are asking for change over the last couple of years when it comes to these roles?
Yes. I mean, certainly, right? As product has become more popular and the discipline has evolved. I love what you said about Agile, right? Agile, we have a joke, kind of an ongoing joke with one of our clients, that Agile will certainly help you build the wrong thing faster. And so we laugh that Agile doesn't actually solve a lot of the fundamental problems that at least our clients are facing. It's
still garbage in, garbage out, right?
Garbage in, garbage out, right? Yeah, I can absolutely deliver the wrong thing in 2-week sprints for you and make it look right. That's easy, and that's where product and Agile really come together. Which is, product as a methodology is really, are we building the right thing? And then are we building that thing the right way? And that's really where we see product and Agile coming together. I think there's still a huge gap in understanding, particularly at the senior executive level, about that nuance. And I think there's still a lot of education that needs to happen certainly with our clients and prospects that we're talking with. There's a lot that needs to go into kind of educating those leaders on how those two things come together and where they don't. And that naturally then kind of evolves the conversation into, okay, if I believe you fundamentally that product is bigger than just Agile and it solves a different set of questions, what type of talent do we need then to really drive that? And what type of talent do we need? And by the way, almost every company we talk to and work with is absolutely trying to elevate their product talent. You know this better than anyone probably in that product is a hot market, right? Currently,
it is.
And it likely will remain that way for some time because it's, you've got the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Googles and here locally the Targets and Best Buys that are pretty forward in their transformations to product. But you look outside of that in healthcare and in insurance and manufacturing and other sectors, they're still years behind. Product is going to be around for a while, and product transformation is going to be a real thing for many.
Because if you think about it, in the CPG side of things, product has been an obvious role and a part of, cereal and, selling toys and whatever. It's been a part of it. But the old IT way was sort of like, okay, we installed servers and we installed a printer and now it just sits there because there was a doneness to technology.
Yep.
We launched the website, so it's done, and 10, 15 years ago, it started to change to where like, wait a second, no, we want to update these things. People are expecting updates. People are expecting new features and new ways of interacting. How do we do that? Okay, well, let's do an annual release. Right. Yeah, I remember back in the day, we did annual releases. And then slowly those got to be bi. And then back to your point, though, there was still no product owner. It was still a mishmash of executives and directors or VPs that were kind of calling the shots on that piece of technology and what was going on. And so it was still a mess. And so when you're getting asked by these employers, I want a product manager. What are they asking for in terms of skill sets? Are they asking the right questions?
Often not. I mean, as you know, it's and there's different needs for different organizations, right? And product being, a product manager really sitting between the business, the technology, and experience, let's call it, design. Organizations or teams are often on different spectrums, right? Some organizations are going to need a really tech heavy product manager, someone who's in the weeds with engineers. If you're launching a new platform or doing something that's really tech heavy, that requires a certain skill set from a product manager. They need to understand architecture and system thinking and system design.
They need to be able to talk the talk, right?
Talk the talk and lead the talk, right? Not just be able to converse, but actually drive the conversation. So that's one avenue. Some need more potentially business model innovation from their product manager or product team. And so they need someone who's savvy and more on the business side. And then lastly, there's obviously companies, many that have existing platforms, but they need a product manager to, like you said, iterate on it, add new features, add new capabilities. And of course, a product manager needs to blend all three, and they need to be pretty proficient in all three. But I think organizations that actually understand the type of product manager they need end up getting better candidates and better talent because they're honed in on the skill sets that they're looking for.
Yeah, they're paying attention to what the needs of the product are, what the users are, what the team's makeup is. Yeah, I think it's a lot of that. You understand what the needs are, but that's the problem with some of the leaders that I've talked to is they're like, well, I need somebody who's going to get more features out.
Yep.
I'm going to need somebody who can write good user, and that because the requirements come from all over the place, right? So the team is like, I want somebody who writes good user stories because I'm sick of having to deal with crap user stories. And the marketing team is like, I need somebody who's doing better A and B testing on things to see what's working. And the CFO and the money people are saying, I need features. I need these things to roll out. And so all these things are being smashed together into job descriptions that are, to your point, are very interesting. But I think you bring up an important point, which is, know your organization. If it is a very tech heavy, if you're selling security software,
right,
versus if you're selling a calendar app or a ERP system or whatever the case may be, they're all very different sort of approaches. And where I see the lines get crossed a lot, like I said, is between a product manager that's actually a project manager.
Yep.
Because they're doing a lot of those tasks. I mean, they're not necessarily managing the budget, but they're really, deep into the schedule and all these things. So, that's the thing I've found has been difficult when hiring product managers is you kind of, even though you want somebody who has a bunch of different skills, no matter what, people always lean towards one direction. And I think if your company knows what that one direction is that they're leaning towards and it's a good fit for your company, I think you can make the rest work, right? It's like it's like a salesperson. If they got good sales skills and soft skills, like I can teach them sales funnels.
I think that is so well put. And the analogy I would use is, and in hiring in particular, my wife, just a quick story. My wife is a very good interior designer, 5-year degree from the University of Minnesota. But where she struggled and where a lot of people struggle is the job descriptions that she was, applying for, 10, 15 years ago, even for entry level required 5 or 10 years of experience. And so people really struggle with some of the job descriptions and really what are they asking for? And do I need to have all of these key skill sets? And I think from an employer standpoint, understanding that up front and tailoring your job description for a product manager is really vital to getting the talent you need. The other thing, Kurt, that you and I deal with all the time is there's a complete lack of understanding between what a product manager is and what a product owner is. And so oftentimes companies use them interchangeably. And from Farren's point of view, they're very different roles. From our point of view, a product owner is really a role on a Scrum team, thinking back to the Agile conversation we had. And really they're responsible for delivery and the backlog and managing those user stories, exactly what you said, working with the Scrum teams to work on the sprints and managing all the ceremonies and everything like that. A product manager in our level is a different role. It's a different skill set. It's a much more strategic skill set. It's thinking about users deeply. It's thinking about the market, the competitive landscape. It's It's thinking about business models and where to go from there. And it's highly data driven. And so those are two very different skill sets. And kind of back to what you and I were talking about, knowing which role you need is really important for those organizations, and knowing the difference, because you're going to get a lot of what we see is a lot of product owners, apply for product manager jobs and don't understand necessarily the skill set gap between the two. And so that's something we're continuously educating folks on is, all right, what do you really need? Is it that higher level strategic thinking, or is it more of that delivery and execution role? And oftentimes they simply say yes, in which case we say, you should look for two people, not one.
Right, exactly. You should look for two people. Because you're going to get one that half-asses both of those things.
Exactly.
Then that's a great segue into that experience. So I'm interested in product management as a profession.
Yeah.
We could probably get into specific roles that transition, but, is there some overarching sort of advice you would give to someone, no matter where they're coming from? I mean, let's assume it's from a technology background or technology design, digital background of some kind, and they're interested into getting into product management as a role. What's your overarching advice for things that they should be looking into, researching, educating themselves on? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, right? In terms of helping people who want to transition into product management, whatever role within product.
Yeah.
And like you and I know, over the last 10 years, I've seen so many project managers want to become product managers because they're in the same.
That's a common transition. I've seen a lot of people in marketing where maybe they are the webmaster, or they're the owner of the site, and it makes, there's a lot of similar skill sets there.
Yep. Sales, operations, we've gotten questions from many different kind of ancillary type industries and roles about how do I transition over to be a product manager? And in full transparency, I don't have a perfect answer. I think the things I lean on most are, you mentioned it. What are the self-learning and skills you need? And we can unpack those. But some of the best advice I got was actually, don't think of it as one jump, think of it as two. And so if you're really, really passionate about going into product and really leading product strategy and product innovation and product marketing, sometimes it may take you a 12 or 18 month iteration to get there. And there's some roles like product marketing, which the marketers honestly can get into fairly easily. And then from there, there's a natural transition over to product management. Operations and sales have a little bit harder time from what I've experienced making that leap. There's a lot of interest there, and there's a lot of skills, right, that do overlap. Being able to create a compelling argument and a compelling story and convince people that you have to do all day, every day in sales and operations, that inherently translates to getting work done as a product manager. But it's not an easy one. And so what I tell people is, don't necessarily think of it as possibly just a clean jump into product management, given how hot the market is, quite frankly, right now for product managers, and given the need for that talent. Sometimes it takes people two jumps. And so if they can find something that gets them halfway there, it's a much easier transition talking to a recruiter or a hiring manager about that transition and about the desire. And that can really be the case. I think for me, like so many people, you get that first crack. You just need that first crack. It's kind of like the first job out of college, right? After you get that first job out of college, your GPA doesn't matter anymore. No one cares. And if you can get close, either a product marketing or a product analyst or a product owner or manager, and you can kind of get that first crack at it, you should be in a great spot to continue to push your product management career forward. But it's not easy. I don't sugarcoat it for folks. Employers are looking for experience, and they're looking for people that are particularly, as you mentioned, I love what you said, because I think that's so true, which is the soft skills. The culture fit is what matters most. I can teach the skills to anyone. Anyone can learn them. There's nothing really magical about it other than experience and having the right culture fit and the right, personality for the job and the right fit for the team. Tell me where you'd like to go from there, because there's a lot to unpack.
Well, the advice I've given people, especially if you have a product management practice in your organization and you're looking to add product managers, back to your thing about really understanding the business and the users. I always coach people to try to peel off time for people internally to maybe shadow some of those product managers. Delegate have the product managers delegate some tasks to these people that are also interested in the role, maybe to some of the project managers that have shown interest in transitioning in your organization to that role. Getting people up to speed there, and then asking those product managers, how's Bill working out? How's Sally working out? Is she getting a hang of what you're up to? And, I think that's one of the easiest things I've seen is where people in if you're a large enough organization, to be able to transition people internally, because they don't have to learn the business. They don't necessarily have to learn the teams and the structure and the product. So that's one of the easiest ways to make that transition. But if you're on the outside looking in, to your point, it's very difficult, but you got to try to build your network with other product managers, understand what their job is, what they're working on, try to get some of that experience wherever you can. And, people are looking for experience, but, there's a lot of, to what we were talking about, there's a lot of transferable skills, but how can you package it in a way that makes the most sense? Where I want to go from there, Joe, is questions that people should be asking in interviews. So, this is advice for both ways. When you're interviewing or when you're coaching people on how to interview product managers, what are some of the questions that you feel are ones that people should be watching out for, but also ones that employers should really be asking? What has served you well?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot there as well, but let's start with the employer side. What should employers be looking for in product managers? And for me, it really comes down to, again, first and foremost is culture fit. How does the person and by the way, let's be clear here. Culture fit doesn't mean they look just like my existing team, and so they're going to fit in seamlessly.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that's what we're talking about here, and that's never what I would advocate.
Yeah.
But culture fit is the ability to come in and hit the ground quickly, work with people, build great relationships, and bring really unique points of view, because that's really the most valuable thing. And so for me, it starts with that culture side and understanding the person and, how their career has unfolded, how they've handled challenges, how they've led up and across their teams and their organizations. I almost always start at that macro level. Like you and I said, it's, experience in product management is a huge plus. Of course, every employer is going to want that. And certainly where applicable, similar industries. We always get our clients that want, hey, I'm in ed tech. I want someone who's got product management in ed tech.
Yep.
And we always coach those folks, industry experience is less important than you might think. Given how hard it is to find folks today, if you get someone that's in an industry that's similar or even maybe not, but they've got the right attitude, they've got the right tenacity,
sure,
they know maybe the fundamentals, they're going to come in and ultimately be successful. Really that mindset piece is what's important for me from a product manager. And how do they think? Are they analytical? Do they leverage data for decision making? But also, do they know when they've got enough data to make a decision and not too much, right?
I think that's,
and so getting rid of, analysis paralysis is super important. So starting to go from kind of that culture and really understanding how a person interacts and behaves and how they think situationally into kind of more of the skill sets, right? Do they understand prioritization? Can they build a business case? Do they leverage data for decision making? Do they understand what good design is? And do they have at least some semblance of the ability to work directly with the technology and engineering teams, right? That's kind of the foundational piece. So asking the right questions to me kind of goes in that linear order almost of culture fit. And again, not looking for the people that look just like us. I actually want diverse thought from product managers.
For sure.
I think that's hypercritical for an organization, and it's easy to default to what you know well, and that's that's where I think a lot of people fall down when hiring product
100%.
managers. They find the people that look just like them and just like their existing team.
Yep.
That's not,
because of the insecurity drives a lot of that.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, because to your point, the culture side of it is really important. One of the pieces of advice I usually give people is make sure you make a list of the things that you can teach, and throw those things out of the interview and the discussion as quickly as you possibly can. Because if no matter what, you're going to have to teach them about what the product is and what its value is, then don't bring up, do they understand what the product is and the value is? If you use proprietary analytics software or something, like don't ask them if they have experience with it. There's things that I find that I've coached a lot of hiring managers on, which is, make sure you make a list of all these things you're going to teach anyways. Just throw them out. Make sure you don't bring those things up in the interview, because they can muddy your decision, right? Because you're asking someone about, you just want to gauge, do they have the ability to learn? Are they curious?
Yes, that's right.
Are they driven to learn and experience the things that you are going to teach them? Because that's a big part of it. Ramp up time is huge. And I don't care if you have, and that's the thing that always shocks me when I see people asking for 4 to 5 years experience. You're still going to need 90 days to 6 months just to get ramped up in the role of a product manager. And by that time, I just don't know how much of that past experience really helps you a ton, because you could end up being one of those people comes in and is just always saying, well, at my last place, we did it this way.
Yeah.
And at my last place, we did it this way. And is that helpful? Is that why you were brought in? Is that you were brought in because, and I get it. Like if somebody worked at a straight competitor and they came in and the place was like, we want you to help us get to where that competitor is, and we're hiring you to help drive that. Like, that's a different discussion. But you know where I'm going with that, Joe?
I do. And to me, I think the number one attribute, let's call it that, of a great product manager is resilience. And that's kind of a cliche. I completely get it, but it's absolutely true. Product management, if you're a product manager or a director of product, Kurt, it can be a very isolating, lonely job. There often aren't a lot of, particularly in small to mid-sized organizations, there aren't a lot of people doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
You don't have a lot of peers.
You don't have a lot of peers. You don't have a huge group of community. And so resilience, as cliche as that is really actually vital for a product manager, because it can get lonely. It can get really hard. Yeah. And really your role in many ways, as silly as this sounds, is to say no to a lot of good ideas. Right. And you've got, so that you can focus on the 3 to 4 great ideas, right? Like it's that level of effort that's required of a great product manager. Yeah. It beats you down, right? It's a hard job. So resilience for me, and as an employer looking for situations where someone has shown resilience and, run through the brick wall to get to the other side, is a really good leading indicator for me that the person might be a good fit.
Resilience is huge, Joe, because, look at last year, everybody's product roadmap blew up in their faces, and it was like, oh crap, like we have to do tele something. We have to connect to phones. We have to, otherwise we're going out of business. And so that resilience piece, absolutely makes a huge difference when the world flips on its head. And it doesn't have to be the world flipping on its head. It could be Apple all of a sudden deciding you don't get cookies anymore, or Google deciding you don't get cookies anymore, or whatever the case may be. And your product is built around, pulling data on cookies or so, you know what I mean? So, that resilience piece I think is huge, Joe, and not to be understated, what you had brought up.
It's really almost one of the number one factors. I mean, to me, that trumps experience of using a product management framework, because that can be taught. But you can't find the people that are the really high performing product managers and leaders of product. They share a different set of traits, right? Yeah. It's back to that culture and that personality and that determination. Product management isn't really for the faint of heart, right? You can't really half-ass product management. You're going to get killed. And so you need the right people to do that. And
it's like sales.
Yeah, it really is. That's exactly right.
You're not going to eat.
So why don't we switch over to the employee side? And I would actually love yours, and I've got many thoughts on this too. But, for you, I know you do a lot of coaching kind of for individuals and teams and such, and you've got a great client list. For the employees themselves, if you've got a friend, what kind of advice do you give him when he or she is looking for a product manager role and evaluating the opportunity? What do you think of? And I've got a kind of a laundry list as well.
Yeah, I think some of the first advice I usually give people is make sure you're doing your research on the organization and the product itself. Don't go in blind. Have as much information as you can on the size. If it's a SaaS company, what's the amount of users, the size of the IT organization, the design organization, what's been some of their recent marketing campaigns. Have a good understanding holistically of what the company is doing, and especially in the last year, have they transitioned at all in their messaging because of the pandemic, or have they just steady as she goes? I would be saying, those are questions I would be bringing up. Is what's the growth look like? How many new users are coming on per week, per day, whatever the size of the organization is, whatever makes sense. Where does it plan to be in the next year? How would my goals be attached to those things? What role would this that I'm applying for play into those bigger strategic moves that the company is making? Asking smart questions because you understand the organization somewhat, I think, is huge to get over that sticky spot about like having the exact amount of experience. Because if you could walk in and say, I have an understanding of the landscape, check my math, but this is what it looks like. This is what I see happening. And asking some really good questions about their roadmap and what they're planning on doing overall, I think sets you apart right away.
I could not agree more. I think asking those really good questions is hard, obviously. And the candidates,
it is hard, but you got to spend the time researching.
That's right. I would add a couple things to that list. If I'm a product manager looking at a new opportunity, or a product owner looking to become a product manager, or even, I'm a director of product and I've managed a portfolio of teams and I'm looking to become a VP of product or move organizations or industries, in addition to what you said, because everything you said was great. The other things I'm asking are, certainly about the team. What's the team? What's the structure? What's, even the org chart, to get into that and really understand where you fit within an organization. I've had several friends that have gotten surprised with, they thought it was one thing and lo and behold, it's not. And you're kind of off in the corner and you're not really having the impact that you wanted to have going in. And so I think understanding the organization to the talent level is important. I think the other thing to really understand that high performing product managers care deeply about is, where is the organization on the product management maturity curve? Meaning, have they just come out of project management and they're switching over to a product mindset and they're very early on in that stage? Or have they been
on the journey, right? Or were they born in product, right? There's a whole it's a spectrum, right?
And I don't know why, but Spotify keeps coming up on our client list. Like, we want to be like product in Spotify. And what we've had to tell insurance companies and healthcare companies and others, which is, Spotify was born as a product company, right? Your organizations were started 50 years ago and almost the opposite of a product company. And so understanding where a company is on their product transformation maturity curve, or their journey, as you said, I think is really important, because the skill sets needed up front in that journey are different than they are at the end or at a mature 100%. Organization.
100%.
And if I'm a high performer, by the way, if I'm a really good product manager and I'm looking for that jump, or I'm looking for that next opportunity, I care deeply about how empowered the product teams are and how is decision making done specifically. Because that, to me, we can overcome the engineering hurdles, right? We can overcome the design hurdles. but it's really hard to overcome the decision-making and speed hurdles of the business.
Right. Because when you got a CEO that likes to come in and do the seagull maneuver, the swoop and poop, and is like, yeah, we're going to release this, we're going to release that. You know what? I had a talk with my buddy at the club the other day, and he mentioned they would really like this feature, so we got to do that. Like, oh boy.
Yep. You're in a very different world than you want to be in, especially if you're a high-performing product manager.
Yeah, right.
That goes back to the whole, feature/delivery teams versus true product teams. And what we find is so few organizations are actually true product teams. It really is kind of the SaaS platforms and the companies that have been born in the last 10 years that started that way, with experienced leadership that knows what that looks like. Yeah. Those are very different situations than going into a long-standing 100-year-old Fortune 500 company. And so I think as a product manager looking for that new job or that new opportunity, I care deeply about what type of situation would I be stepping into? Right. Because it can, as you know, Kurt, the spectrum is wild, right? The difference, it's remarkable.
It's remarkable.
So walking in blind to that, I think, is a mistake. And given how much opportunity there is for product managers and really good ones, they can almost pick where they go at this point, within reason, of course. Yeah. And so understanding that situational awareness of the team and the organization and the broader strategy, super important during the interview process.
Yeah. So let's talk about last question I have for you, Joe. Do you feel like we've reached peak product, or are we just at the tip of the iceberg here in where things are going over the next few years?
For me personally, I think at the macro level, I think we're closer to the first than at the peak. I think the first couple dominoes have fallen for product management. I think it's on the radar of almost every C-suite leader, certainly in the Fortune 500. And Fortune 5,000 even, mid-size and large organizations are really thinking about how do they deliver value to their users and customers, which aren't always the same, by the way. Right. But how do they deliver value and faster, right? It's both speed and value that is really important. And so, like I said earlier, and I'm sure you would likely agree with this, which is so many organizations are still 5 to 10 years behind the leaders. In terms of org structure, in terms of talent, in terms of operating model, all of those things, in terms of how teams are financed versus projects. I mean, that whole thing about finance and HR.
Yeah, that's a whole nother world.
And product management, what people don't understand is I equate it almost to like the operating system of an organization, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just the product managers. It forces changes in compliance and risk and HR and finance and marketing, operations, sales. Product hits all of those areas, and a lot of organizations don't really understand that at the macro level. And so I think we're just getting started, to be honest with you. I think there's so many companies that are desperately in need of it, but that are just getting going. And so for us, we're looking at a 5-year plus horizon of where product is still very much needed. And it could likely be longer.
Yeah, like you said, there's a maturity that needs to happen, and that doesn't happen overnight. So, all right, Joe, I could talk to you for hours, but we do need to cut it off here. If I want to know more about you and the work you do at Farren, where do I find more info? How can I find out more about the work that you do?
Yeah, www.hellofarren, and that's FAHREN.com. And we're helping companies go through these exact type of situations. So if anyone's listening and needs help or needs guidance, we're happy to give a second set of eyes to a problem you may be facing. So yeah, hellofarren.com. Great place to go.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate it.
Kurt, this was a blast. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was Joe at Farren. You should definitely check out the work that they do over at Farren. They also do a lot of events and things like that too. So I would definitely subscribe to whatever channels they've got because they are quite a force in at least the Twin Cities area. So I would definitely check them out. So speaking of force, I'm going to will you to apply for a Foundry job, you want to work here. Yes, you do. And if you already are satisfied with where you're at, well, we can always just have a casual chat, and if you know people, you should send them this link and say, hey, saw this wacky guy on a live stream talking about stuff and things and product. It sounds like a cool place to work. Maybe you should check it out. So feel free to share, okay? Don't be shy. And I appreciate you all taking time out of your busy day to join me. We'll see you all again soon.